decision. It's showtime, girls.
Final Fantasy X-2 is the most unnecessary video game sequel I've ever played. Plague of Gripes described this game as an incompetent director's sexual fantasy about the idol industry. A summary that's so perfect, it makes this video completely pointless. Look, if you like this game, I don't have a problem with that, really, it's fine. Now, 16-year-old me might just have an issue with it. Could you imagine someone walking in on you playing and this is the scene that they see?
Ah, there! Ah. Oh, you're good!
How do you explain this? Well, you see, Yuna's pretending to be... she lost the love of... infiltrate and massage to get dead boy... I understand that complaining about a game that is very clearly not for me is completely reductive, but man, it was a real shock to the system at the time. I'm also not going for 100%, because I remember the criteria being really strict, and I don't want to deal with it. Alright, let's start the game. Nice piano track, and... oh no. No.
英語でライトニングという言葉には雷の意味があります。当時ライトニングはファイナルファンタジーの主人公であることはもちろん、当時作った大きなポスターが今でも私の13-2のライトニングは人間を超えて
Oh boy, we're in for a ride, a real video game experience. We start in Lucas Stadium, where Yuna does a double Sailor Moon costume change. Believe it or not, that's actually a game mechanic. Then she goes into her J-pop routine. Alright, right off the bat, there's a lot to unpack here. Who is Yuna? Or who is she according to Final Fantasy X? Yuna is polite.
Thank you so much for your help earlier.
Soft-spoken.
I hope I did okay.
Selfless.
Give them a reason to rejoice once more.
I will.
Naive, according to the other characters anyway.
She's naive, serious to a fault, and doesn't ask for help.
She's spent most of her life as a devout follower of a religion, which, to be fair, she does turn her back on. In Final Fantasy X, one of Yuna's jobs as a summoner was to guide the souls of the dead into the far plane, which is Spira's equivalent of the afterlife. This dance is traumatic for her and the loved ones of the dead being sent to the afterlife. So fuck it, she's a pop star now. Trauma, death, grief, get the fuck out of here with that shit. I want to watch my J-pop star dance and sing. Fuck the symbolism. Anyway, Riku from Final Fantasy X and a new character, Pain,
I got your picture.
confront Yuna and she dance fights you, I guess? So we find out that it's actually someone called LeBlanc, who stole Yuna's dress sphere. So Riku and Pain chase down LeBlanc and fight her two goons, Ormi and Logos. Then the real Yuna shows up. That cringe pain you're feeling right now, apparently that's real pain. Wikipedia calls it pain empathy. It's your brain telling you, hey, you see that shit? Don't do that. Seriously, I asked my friend about it, and he's a qualified nurse. You're a qualified nurse, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I just wanted to know, is cringe pain real?
Yes.
The gang fight LeBlanc and her goons, and Yuna gets her garnet grid back. So the battle system is a little different. In Final Fantasy X, it's turn-based, and you get to see the turn order. In Final Fantasy X-2, it's active, so pick your moves quick or get wailed on. If you time your moves right, you can chain them together and get more damage. The system's good. It has a bit of urgency, and I like it. I'm trying to be objective here. The game shows us how to change our dress sphere mid-battle, changing Yuna from a gunner, her default class, into the songstress, who uses status ailments. So dress spheres are actually jobs, like they are in Final Fantasy V, where you make your own party and choose the skills you want to learn, which is great, because I really like that system. You also have garment grids that facilitate the dress spheres. They have passives that are active on equipped, and others that you need to transfer to another dress sphere to activate. But you're going to have to watch them do their Sailor Moon routine every time. Of course, waiting a long time for a single animation is very typical Final Fantasy. After beating Gunman and Shield Guy, Yuna's dress sphere takes over and she bursts into dance. Because of course she does. Man, this is pretty different to Final Fantasy X's opening. Now the girls are back on their airship called the Celsius, and the crew along with our J-pop gang are called the Gullwings. We then meet the crew, who are analysed from Yuna's perspective. Shinra is an Albed kid genius. How do we know this? His opening line of dialogue.
I know everything.
And if you didn't get the point, Yuna chimes in.
Shinra's an Albed. He's a real whiz kid.
Alright, let's break this down. So, a few years ago, the best friends did a Let's Play of the David Cage game, Detroit Become Human. Because they were so familiar with his work, they made a bingo card that has all of his tropes and writing habits. Now, I want you to pay attention to this one in particular. Writing dialogue is really hard. I mean, you want to tell a story, but you don't want the characters to come off two-dimensional. So, what does Shinra say?
I know everything.
Then Yuna backs this up, so it's not just a kid discovering something new and then enthusiastically stating, wow, I know everything. It's a character that states that, I know everything, is an inventor, allegedly, and it's confirmed by Yuna and the universe of the game that he is a genius. So if you were to approach a scientist, or better yet, Albert Einstein, and the first thing he says is, I know everything, then what's the problem? And this is why I don't watch anime. Or maybe he's just a shitty little kid and that statement is just his hubris talking. That's also a possibility.
I'm just a kid.
It's also Toriyama saying, look guys, it's Shinra. So the game is actually a prequel to Final Fantasy VII. Isn't that cool? Fuck off. Good voice acting is really important. And if a video game chooses to have it, then getting it right makes a hell of a difference.
Given those two choices, yes. In the best of all possible worlds, they would just leave us in peace. But they won't. I don't enjoy killing, but when done righteously, it's just a chore, like any other.
After all that's happened, still you live. You are difficult to kill.
For one as limited as you, perhaps. To have fallen so far and learned nothing, that is your failing.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying that Final Fantasy X is perfect when it comes to voice acting. It ranges from moments of brilliance.
You did very well. They've reached the far plane by now, but no tears next time. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to change the world too, but I changed nothing. That is my story.
Sometimes Yuna would just stare off into the distance. I finally understood why. She was saying goodbye to the places she'd never see again.
To just fucking abysmal.
You heathen!
Stay away from the summoner!
Get me out of here! I want out now!
I mean, with context, the laughing scene is a little better, if not still kind of weird.
This is weird.
Next, try laughing out loud.
What?
Come on, show me.
What are you looking at?
We were just worried you guys might have gone crazy.
So we run around the ship and meet the rest of the crew. We meet Pain.
I got your picture.
I've heard people say that she's a female version of Squall or Cloud. She's the serious, rational, and reserved member of the group. Upstairs in the cabin, we meet Barkeep, a Hypello who's basically just Mickey Rooney from Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Miss Yuna, what can I do for you?
Better go lightly! Once again, I must protest!
The ship's co-pilot, Buddy, is another one of those was there the whole time characters that Star Wars seems to be really fond of. At first, he doesn't really add much of anything. He kind of looks like Nimruk, but he's just not nearly as useful. Riku's back, and you know what? Yeah, I can buy Riku becoming a pop star with her upbeat, quirky personality. Riku getting into show business makes complete sense. Unlike some other people, Brother is also here. Moving on.
Not so fast, Trebek.
Okay, so he was a real fuckhead in Final Fantasy X, and he's so much worse in this game. Seriously, this is what this character does all day. Scream and drool over Yuna.
Dancing, Yuna, I want to see.
It'll cost you.
One moment. Let's go! Party! Party!
Leader must be tough.
Sicko!
Who, if you forgot, is his cousin. And I'm convinced that he knows this, but doesn't care because he's a degenerate. And yep, that confirms it. At this point, Shinra introduces the Creature Creator system that lets you capture fiends and use them in battle. Which means that if you want to beat the game as a chicken, a cactus, and a midget, you can do that. Yeah, that actually sounds like fun. Then I just froze in my tracks because I couldn't believe what I was hearing with this backtrack. Listen to this audio transition. Smooth like sandpaper. Final Fantasy X had a great soundtrack. Final Fantasy X-2 does not. I call this track the anguish of the baguette. So why is any of this happening? Why is Yuna now a sphere hunter with the gull wings? And how does this relate to Final Fantasy X? That's a good question. Anyway, Buddy picks up a signal for a sphere on top of Mount Gagazet, the home of the Ronso. So the girls decide to track it down. But suddenly Yuna's fear of heights kicks in. You remember the fear of heights she had in Final Fantasy X?
Yuna!
Pain is edgy.
I got your picture!
Riku! Come in!
You want me to hurt him?
Which comes with the territory of being named Pain, I guess. So the game's now got platforming, which is as clunky as it looks. You hold down the action button and you can jump over gaps. Even though the jumps are pretty much guaranteed to work, they still feel like shit. So the Gullwings run into the LeBlanc Syndicate again, who have been tracking them because they're also sphere hunters. So we fight them and their goons, have a race to the top, and leave them to presumably fall to their deaths. The Gullwings fight a giant crab named Boris.
Boris! Boris!
What?
And get the sphere. LeBlanc and the gang show up, defeated.
Obvious to the trained eye, that sphere's just a dud. Perfect for the dull wings.
Back at the ship, Brother is injured because he tried to save the girls. Riku then kicks him for incest attempt number 37. Gullwings take a look at that sphere and find footage of what looks like Zanarkand, which is pretty interesting because you don't really see too much of it in Final Fantasy X.
It's not very exciting.
Junk.
Apparently it's not very interesting. Alright. So why are the Gullwings hunting spheres that contain video footage? How is any of this relevant to Final Fantasy X? That's a good question. We return to Luca for more context on the intro. Yuna was hiding in a Moogle costume the whole time. So Yuna gets busy handing out balloons in an animal costume. Meanwhile, what's happening in Final Fantasy X at this point?
I had made it out of the frying pan and into the freezer. I thought I was gonna die in this place.
Yeah, that's about right. Eventually, she ditches the suit and the ambush goes ahead. At this point, it becomes obvious that Yuna is addressing Tidus in all these monologues. But how? Now the group heads back to Besaid, and if you haven't played Final Fantasy X and need context, well, that's just too bad. Since the game hasn't explained anything yet, I'm not going to do it until the game decides to. Yuna returns to Besaid Village, where her journey as a summoner began, She's welcomed with open arms by Lulu and Waka. Waka greets the party and seems to be unsure about his ability to be a father.
Waka, a daddy!
To tell the truth, I sure don't feel like one. I mean, how do I know how a father's supposed to act in front of his kid?
Yuna greets Lulu, who is pregnant, although she doesn't look it. Character models are really hard to make, and we already have this one, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. Yuna then reveals the reason why she's doing any of this. She shows Lulu a sphere of a guy who looks suspiciously like Titus.
It does look like him, though something seems a little off.
And now we really can't keep going without explaining Final Fantasy X, so here we fucking go.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
Final Fantasy X starts with a famous blitzball player named Titus, who lives in the shadow of his famous but now missing father, Jecht. During a game of blitzball, the city is attacked by a giant creature named Sin, and the city is obliterated. We also see a guy in a red coat named Auron walking around. He doesn't look too bothered by Sin. During the game, Titus spots Sin destroying the city and he makes a lucky escape. Eventually, he runs into Auron.
Auron! What are you doing here?
I was waiting for you.
What are you talking about?
Who guides him through the calamity.
We called it sin.
Sin? Whoa!
Auron seems to be communicating with Sin.
You are sure?
And then both he and Titus are consumed by it. Titus awakes in a land called Spira, near the ruins of a sunken temple. And after a few near-death experiences and potential starvation, he's rescued by a group of Albed, a race of technology users who are marginalized to say the least. Titus helps them recover an airship from the ocean and befriends one of the Albeds, Riku. He discovers that he might have been sent forward 1,000 years into the future, and then he's attacked by Sin again. He awakens on the shore of Besaid, a small backwater island, and here he sees a blitzball, which links his home of Zanarkand to Spira. Waka sees his shot and wants Titus on his blitzball team, who suck, by the way. I don't know if I made that clear last time. So Titus learns about the land of Spira and the religion of Yevon. Yevon claims that Sin exists because the people took technology use too far, and thus were punished for it. Spira's way of life is centered around the fact that Sin could come at any moment and kill them all. At the Besaid Temple, Titus learns about the Summoners, who'd have two very important jobs in Spira: to send the souls of the dead to the afterlife, and to defeat Sin. He meets Yuna, a fledgling summoner who is following in her father's footsteps. They hit it off, and Titus comes with Yuna and her guardians: Waka, who we met initially, Lulu, a black mage who acts as an older sister to Yuna, and Kamari, a stoic Ronso who is unquestionably loyal. They reluctantly bring Titus along so that they can eventually bring him to Luca, a blitzball hotspot, where surely someone would recognize him. Traveling with Yuna, Titus learns more about Spira, the roles of the summoners, the religion, the faith, the Aeons, who are used as weapons for the summoners, the importance of blitzball as a form of relief from the tragedy of Sin, the prejudice towards the Albed, and how the people live in spite of Sin. The group reaches Luca, and Titus is reunited with Auron. We learn that Jecht also found himself in Spira, and ended up becoming a guardian for Yuna's dad, Braska, along with Auron.
You knew my old man, didn't you?
Yeah,
And you also knew Yuna's father?
that's correct.
Hey man, there's no way! That's just impossible!
Nothing impossible about it.
They defeated Sin 10 years prior, but the problem is that Sin doesn't just die. He comes back to life. Auron then tells Titus that Sin is Jecht.
It is. Sin is Jecht.
No, that's ridiculous! No way! I don't believe you!
But it is the truth. You'll see for yourself. I'm going to offer my services to Yuna. Come.
Auron then convinces the party to bring Titus along, because he promised Jecht that he would look after him. So Titus tags along for Yuna's pilgrimage. She's going to every temple in Spira to get Aeons to train for the final summoning, an act that will stop Sin temporarily, but in a cruel twist of fate requires a willing sacrifice from a loved one to become the final Aeon, which will kill the summoner. This explains how Jecht became Sin. he offered Braska his life to become the final Aeon, who kills Sin and then becomes Sin. Titus ultimately has to face his father, who he has a strained relationship with, to say the least. In the end, the group ends up defying Yevon and exposing the religion for the sham that it is. They destroy the ones responsible for the ritual of the final summoning, and they manage to defeat Sin by killing Yu Yevon, the parasite responsible for regenerating Sin, by using the final Aeon to revive himself. The only problem is that Sin's purpose was to protect a dream world, a world that Titus Inject came from. So by destroying Sin, they destroy the Dream of the Faith, which is both the source of the Aeons and the reason why Titus Inject could manifest themselves in the real world. From the start, Titus and Yuna are immediately attracted to one another, and it's not really a will they won't they situation, it's more my fate is to sacrifice myself, so there's not really much point. But they soon crack and their relationship gets a little more serious after a certain point. The group ends up defeating Sin permanently, the irony being that Titus is the one who makes the sacrifice, and Yuna has to go on living without him. It's a clever twist, and it feels like an appropriate ending for Final Fantasy X. To put it simply, Final Fantasy X is about sacrifice, moving on with your life, the often unfair expectations of legacy, and the similarities between religion and sport. Final Fantasy X too is not about any of these things. It seems to be about having your cake and eating it too.
I want that sphere.
It's as good as ours. Let's scramble.
I really don't know what to make of it. It really undermines the point of Final Fantasy X and its ending, which wrapped everything up so perfectly. So why would anyone make a sequel to it? Well, don't ask me. Ask this fucking guy. And there's your motivation, the chance to find someone who may or may not be dead. Like, Silent Hill 2, but, not good.